For 3 days, the security footage sat untouched in my phone's gallery, burning a hole in my mind. I finally showed it to my brother, Jake, in the dim glow of my living room in Fremont, Nebraska. The TV's blue light flickered across our faces as the silent video played. "Hold it right there," Jake muttered, his voice low, almost swallowed by the quiet. On the screen, two women were laughing, swaying with guys who weren't us. The timestamp glared. 2:47 a.m. last weekend. That was when Jake and I were stuck on our shift at the oil rig off the coast of Texas. "The blonde's your wife," I said, jabbing a finger at the screen. "The brunette by the counter? That's mine." I watched my wife, Ellen, lean into a kiss with some guy I didn't know, his hands gripping her hips. In the background, Jake's wife, Rachel, was tossing back shots with another stranger. "Where'd you get this?" Jake asked, his tone steady, but I could feel the tension coiling inside him. Motion sensor on the deck. They used my house while we were gone, thinking no one would check the cameras. My finger lingered over the delete button. "Should I wipe it?" Jake grabbed my wrist. "Don't you touch that delete button." The room went quiet, just the soft hum of the AC filling the space. My brain was already spinning, piecing things together. 22 years married, 18 years working grueling shifts on the rig, sweating through 12-hour days in the Gulf heat to keep the bills paid. "What's on your mind?" Jake asked. I stood, my knees creaking from years of hauling equipment. At 45, I felt every second of those long days under the sun. "I'm thinking," I said, staring out at the quiet streets of our neighborhood in Dodge County, where we'd bought homes 6 years back. "I've got to play this smart." The next morning, I pulled into our driveway to find Ellen in the kitchen, flipping pancakes for our 16-year-old daughter, Sophie. The place smelled like coffee and syrup, same as always when I got back from a rotation. Ellen glanced up from the stove and flashed a smile. "You're back early," she said, stepping over to peck my cheek. "How was the rig?" I let her kiss me, scanning her face for any hint of a lie. Same Ellen, short dark hair, faint lines around her eyes from her desk job at the city hall. That tiny scar above her brow from when Sophie chucked a block at her as a kid. "Smooth run," I said. "Got home faster than usual." Sophie looked up from her phone. "Dad, can you drive me to Mia's later? Mom says she's too wiped out." "Sure thing," I said, settling at the table. Ellen slid a plate of pancakes and sausage in front of me. "What's Mia up to?" I asked. "Just chilling, maybe a movie," Sophie said. I nodded, slicing into my food. "Ellen, you remember that legal form I had you sign last month for the emergency fund?" She paused, wiping the counter. "Yeah, what about it?" "Just checking our paperwork's tight. The company's been hounding us to get everything squared away for insurance." The lie slipped out easily. Truth was, I'd been shifting money into a trust for months, way before I saw that footage. Working rigs teach you to brace for the worst. Never thought the worst would come from my own wife. After breakfast, I dropped Sophie at her friend's place and came home to find Ellen in the shower. I headed to my study, a little room off the hallway Ellen barely steps into, and fired up the security system on my computer. I'd set up the whole deal myself, cameras, sensors, even audio in the main rooms, after some burglaries hit our street a couple years back. Ellen griped about the price but liked the peace of mind. What she didn't know was the second system I rigged, backing everything up to a private server in the shed. The main setup we both could check on our phones. The backup? That's mine alone. I pulled up the party footage again, this time with sound. Ellen's laugh rang through the speakers, her voice clear as she talked to that guy. "My husband's gone till Tuesday. We've got all night." I shut the laptop and leaned back. The betrayal stung, but her casual tone, like I was just some inconvenience, cut deeper. My phone buzzed with a text from Jake. "You good? Haven't heard from you." I typed back, "Fine, just chewing it over." "Beer? Rachel's working late, right?" I almost smirked. Rachel's a nurse at the local clinic, and I'd bet my boots she wasn't pulling any late shifts. That footage showed her swapping numbers with the guy she was dancing with. "Yeah," I replied. "Meet you at Rusty's in an hour." Rusty's bar was a rough-around-the-edges joint in Fremont, packed with rig workers and truckers. Cheap beers, loud country tunes, and no one poking into your business. Jake and I grabbed a booth in the corner, sipping our drinks and half watching a football game on the TV above the bar. "So, what's the move?" Jake asked after 10 minutes of silence. "Move?" I said, raising an eyebrow. "Come on, man, I know you. 20 years on the rigs, you don't make a step without a plan." I took a slow pull from my beer. "First, I'm collecting proof." "Evidence?" he asked. "Then what?" "Then I burn it all down." Jake stared at me. "You sure? Maybe we should just talk to them, see if we can fix it." "Fix it?" My voice stayed low, but it had an edge. Jake, your wife was all over some guy in my kitchen. Mine was scheduling her fling around our shifts. This wasn't a slip-up. They planned it. Jake looked down at his bottle. Rachel's been off for a while, distant. I figured it was just her job wearing her down. How long? I asked. 6 months, maybe. It started when she kept going out with her friends more. I nodded, not surprised. Ellen's been acting the same way lately. Keeps saying she needs space now that Sophie's getting older. Jake and I sat quietly, staring at the football game on the TV at Rusty's bar, neither of us giving a damn about the score. After a while, Jake broke the silence. What kind of proof are you digging for? Bank statements, phone logs, travel receipts, everything, I said, draining my beer and waving at the bartender for another. The smart home system picks up audio in the main rooms. I'm going to see what else I can pull that's above board. It's my house, my setup, all in my name. I gave a tight smile. You'd be amazed what you can pull off when you're the only one who bothers with the fine print. Over the next week, I fell into a pattern. I'd come back from my rig shift, act like everything was fine around Ellen and Sophie, then spend my nights combing through security footage and our finances. What I found hit me like a punch to the gut. That party wasn't a one-off. Ellen had been bringing guys over for months, always when I was out on the rig. She'd been using our shared credit card for fancy dinners and hotel stays. She even dipped into our savings to buy herself new dresses and earrings. But the real kicker came when I hacked into her work laptop remotely. As a city hall clerk, Ellen had access to property deeds, legal filings, all sorts of confidential stuff. I found emails between her and some guy named Bryce Coleman, who worked for a rival oil company. The messages showed she'd been feeding him my rig schedule, my pay details, even specs on our home security system. Bryce was using it to time his visits to our place. In one email, Ellen wrote, "My husband's so wrapped up in his job, he wouldn't notice if we cleaned out the house. He'd probably blame a glitch in the system." I printed every email and locked them in a fireproof safe in the shed, along with copies of the video footage. Then, I kicked off the next part of my plan. The trust fund I'd been building for months was ready. I'd been siphoning off cash bit by bit, couple hundred here, couple hundred there, disguised as standard investments. The house title, my truck, my fishing boat, all were in the trust's name now. Legally, I owned nothing, but I controlled it all through the trust. Ellen's name wasn't on a single document. The next move was trickier. I needed proof of her cheating that would stand up in court, but I had to cover my own ass legally. Confronting her outright would just give her time to lawyer up. Instead, I decided to let Ellen's own choices bury her. I set up a meeting with the company's legal team. As a rig supervisor, I had plenty of reasons to talk about crew safety or liability concerns. During the meeting, I casually brought up a hypothetical question. Say someone's leaking rig schedules or employee data to a competitor, what happens then? I asked the company lawyer, a sharp guy named Greg. His face turned serious. That's a major breach. We've dealt with corporate espionage before. Anyone caught sharing sensitive info would be fired on the spot and could face criminal charges. Doesn't matter if it's just pillow talk, bragging to a partner about work. Personal relationships are the biggest weak spot for leaks. He leaned in. Is there something specific you're worried about, Mike? Just making sure my crew knows the rules, I said, keeping it cool. Appreciate the insight. That night, I had dinner with Sophie while Ellen was supposedly pulling a late shift at City Hall. Sophie's been quieter lately, sticking to her room, barely hanging out with us. I wondered if she'd picked up on the strain between me and her mom. Dad, she said, pushing her green beans around her plate, are you and Mom okay? I looked up from my burger. What makes you ask? You guys barely talk anymore and Mom's acting weird, always glued to her phone, snapping at me when I ask her anything. I put my knife down. Sophie's sharp, way sharper than I was at her age. She's already got acceptance letters from 3 colleges, aiming for mechanical engineering. Your mom and I are dealing with some stuff, I said carefully. But whatever happens, you know I've got your back, right? She nodded, but her eyes were uneasy. Are you splitting up? Don't know yet, kiddo, I said. But if we do, it's not on you, and I'll make sure you're set. Later that night, after Ellen got home from her late shift, I lay in bed listening to her in the shower. When she slid under the covers, I caught a whiff of cologne that wasn't mine. How was work? I asked into the dark. Hectic, she said. Getting ready for next month's tax filings. Another lie. I'd checked the City Hall schedule. No late nights listed for the rest of the month. The next morning, I made my move. I printed out Ellen's emails and the party footage, then drove to the city hall in Fremont. I asked to meet with Ellen's boss, Diane Harper, saying I had concerns about data security. I'd done my research. Diane's a no-nonsense type, running the department for 25 years, dodging scandals by keeping everything squeaky clean. "Mr. Donovan, what's this about?" Diane asked, motioning me to a chair in her office. "It's about my wife, Ellen Donovan. She works for you." Diane's face tightened. "Is there an issue?" I handed her a folder. "I believe she's been sharing sensitive information with someone outside the office." "I've got proof." Diane opened the folder, her eyes scanning the emails and video timestamps. Her face went pale as she took it all in. Diane's voice was heavy when she spoke. "This is serious business. I'll have to launch a full investigation." "I get it," I said. "Just felt I had to bring it to your attention." Leaving the city hall, I didn't feel any thrill of victory, just a grim resolve to see this through. I drove to Jake's place in Sarpy County and found him slouched on his front porch, nursing a mug of coffee, staring into space. "Rachel's gone," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Packed her bags and moved to her cousin's place." I dropped into the chair beside him. "When did this happen?" "Last night. Said she needed time to sort herself out." Jake gave a hollow chuckle. 20 years together and now she needs to sort herself out. "Did you show her the footage?" I asked. "Yeah. She swore it was nothing at first, just having fun. Then she flipped, accused me of snooping on her." He shook his head. "Made me feel like I was the one who screwed up." I knew that game. The ones in the wrong always twist it, make you feel like you're the problem. "What's your next move?" I asked. "Hell if I know," Jake said. "Maybe she's got a point. Maybe I wasn't around enough, didn't notice her drifting." "Cut that out," I said, my voice sharp. "You didn't step out on her. You didn't trash 20 years of marriage. You didn't invite strangers into your house and laugh it off." Jake's tired eyes met mine. "So what do I do?" "Cover your bases, legal, financial, emotional. Document everything and brace for a fight." "I don't want to fight her," he said. "She's already fighting you, man. Been at it for months. You just didn't see it coming." That afternoon, I got home to find Ellen pacing the kitchen, her phone glued to her ear. She was whispering, but I caught enough to know it was Bryce Coleman on the line. "I can't talk now," she said. "Something's going down at work. I might be in hot water." I pretended to sort through some junk mail, but I was listening hard. "No, Mike doesn't suspect a thing," she said, her voice tight. "He's too dense to put it together." She paused. "I gotta go. I'll call you later." She hung up and turned to see me standing there. "Everything okay?" I asked, keeping my tone light. "Yeah, just work drama," she said, forcing a smile. "How was your day?" "Not bad. Ran some errands around town." That night, dinner was heavy with silence. Sophie poked at her food, avoiding our eyes. The air in the house had shifted in just a few weeks, and we all felt it. After dinner, Sophie muttered something about homework and disappeared. Ellen slipped into the bedroom, claiming she had calls to make. I retreated to my study, going over the evidence I'd stacked up. Everything was lined up. Now I just had to wait for the pieces to fall. 3 days later, the first piece dropped. Ellen stormed in from work, eyes red, voice shaking. "They suspended me," she said, slamming her bag on the counter. "Diane Harper put me on leave for an investigation." I glanced up from my coffee. "Investigation for what?" "They're claiming I leaked sensitive info to someone outside the office. It's total nonsense." Her eyes narrowed. "I don't know who's behind this, but I'm going to find out." Sophie wandered into the kitchen, drawn by her mom's raised voice. "Mom, what's going on?" "Nothing, sweetie," Ellen said, softening her tone but not her anger. "Just some trouble at work." That night, I overheard Ellen on the phone with Bryce, her voice breaking as she begged for his help. "You can't ditch me now," she said. "We're in this together." There was a long pause, then her voice cracked. "What do you mean you're done with me?" "Bryce, please, I need you." I heard her phone hit the floor, followed by her stifled sobs. I didn't feel any joy in her pain, just a hollow ache where our marriage used to be. A week later, the second piece fell. Bryce got canned from his job at the rival oil company after my employer lodged a complaint about corporate espionage. The evidence was thin, but it was enough to make him look unreliable. Jobless, Bryce must have decided Ellen wasn't worth the hassle. He stopped answering her calls and cut her off online. Ellen's desperation was plain as day. She started drinking more, staying up late, scrolling her phone, muttering to herself. She'd snap at Sophie over nothing and lock herself in the bathroom for hours, crying. I watched it all like I was studying a stranger, not the woman I'd shared my life with for 22 years. The third piece hit hardest. One evening, Sophie came to my study, her face set and serious. Dad, we need to talk. I closed the budget I was working on and turned to her. What's up, kiddo? She shut the door and sat across from me, looking nervous but determined. I know about Mom, she said quietly. I know what she's been doing. My gut twisted. What are you talking about? I saw the footage on your computer, Dad. The screen was on when I came in here for a charger last week. I shut my eyes. I'd been so careful to shield Sophie from this, but she was too sharp, too observant. Sophie, I can explain. You don't need to, she said, her voice steady, despite the tears in her eyes. Mom's been cheating on you. I figured it out a while ago. How? Her late-night calls, the new outfits, the way she acts like you're just in her way. Sophie swiped at her tears. I got up, walked around the desk, and pulled her into a hug. She held on tight like she did when she was little and scared of storms. I'm sorry you found out like this, I said. I was trying to keep you out of it. I know, she said. But I'm not a kid anymore, Dad. I can handle it. Sophie and I held on to each other for a long moment. Two people blindsided by someone we'd trusted with everything. When we finally pulled apart, Sophie looked up at me. What are you going to do, Dad? I'm going to make sure you and I are okay, no matter what happens with your mom, I said, her jaw set. When you guys split, I want to live with you. I mean it. My chest ached. No kid should have to pick sides, but Ellen had forced that choice. We'll sort it out together, I promised. The next piece fell when the city hall wrapped up Ellen's investigation. They couldn't prove she meant to break the law, but sharing confidential info was a major violation. They fired her on the spot. No severance, no chance of coming back. That afternoon, Ellen stormed into the house like a tornado, slamming cabinets and tossing dishes into the sink. Sophie bolted to her room, and I just sat at the kitchen table watching her unravel. This is on you, she screamed, pointing at me. You ratted me out to Diane Harper. I sipped my coffee, calm as could be. I reported a security issue. I had to. Security issue? She spat. I didn't tell Bryce anything serious. It was just talk. You gave him my rig schedule. You told him about our home security. You shared City Hall records. My voice stayed even. What do you call that? Ellen's face went pale. She hadn't realized how much I'd pieced together. How did you... She started, then caught herself. How'd I figure it out? I said. I just paid attention, unlike you. She sank into a chair, looking worn out, older than her 43 years. Mike, we got to talk about us, about our marriage. What about it? I know things have been rough. I messed up, but we can fix this. We could try counseling. I almost laughed. After months of lying, tearing our family apart, and making a fool of me, she wanted to patch things up. Not happening, I said quietly. Her eyes welled up. What do you mean? I'm done, Ellen. Done with you, this marriage, acting like everything's fine. You can't mean that, she said, tears spilling. We've got history. We've got Sophie. Sophie's stronger than both of us. She'll be fine. Mike, please, I love you. I screwed up, but I love you. I walked to the window, staring out at the quiet streets of Dodge County. Kids rode bikes, neighbors walked their dogs. A perfect little suburban picture. You love me, I said, repeating her words. When did you figure that out? Before or after Bryce ghosted you? She flinched like I'd hit her. That's not fair. Fair. I turned to face her. Was it fair when you brought guys into our home? When you laughed about how clueless I was? When you burned through our savings for your affair? Tears streamed down her face. I'm sorry, Mike. I don't know what I was thinking. You thought I was too dumb to notice. You saw me as a paycheck who crashed in your house. You figured you could have it all without getting caught. My voice stayed steady, but it had an edge. When's the last time you asked about my day? About my work, my life, anything? She opened her mouth, but no words came. I shook my head. You checked out years ago. You just didn't bother telling me. She tried to speak, but I raised a hand. I'm filing for divorce. Sophie can decide where she wants to live. The house, the truck, the accounts. The lawyers can deal with it. Her face twisted from grief to rage. You can't just throw me out. This is my house too. Actually, it's not. What are you talking about? I sat back down, facing her. Your name's been off the deed for 6 months. She stared, confused. That's impossible. We bought this place together. We did. But remember last year when I said we were refinancing for a better rate? You signed some papers. Her face went white as it sank in. Those weren't for refinancing. Nope. Trust documents. The house, the truck, the accounts, they're all in a trust I control. She shot up, knocking her chair over. That's fraud? Not when you signed willingly. You just didn't read the fine print. I gave a grim smile. It's amazing what you can pull off when you're the only one who cares about details. Ellen was shaking now, furious. I'll get a lawyer. I'll fight you for everything. With what? You're jobless. Your credit cards are maxed from your shopping sprees with Bryce, and he's not coming to your rescue. He's too busy scrambling for work. The truth hit her hard, like a brick. She was cornered. No money, no job, no one in her corner. You planned this, she whispered. All of it. I prepared, I corrected. There's a difference. That night, Ellen didn't come to bed. I found her the next morning passed out on the couch, still in her clothes, an empty whiskey bottle on the coffee table. Sophie came down for breakfast and saw her mom sprawled out. Her eyes, too old for 16, met mine. Is she going to be okay? She asked. That's up to her, I said honestly. Over the next few days, Ellen tried calling friends and family, fishing for support. It didn't go well. Word of her affair had spread through Fremont's gossip mill. Those who didn't know got an earful from her frantic, rambling calls. Her sister Karen was blunt. Ellen, you made this mess. Deal with it. Her old high school buddy was kinder, but just as firm. You need to focus on fixing your life for Sophie's sake. Even her mom, who always backed her up, was cold. I can't believe you'd do this to Mike. He's been nothing but good to you and Sophie. The isolation chewed at Ellen's already shaky state. She started drinking by noon, scrolling social media for hours, leaving unhinged comments on old friends' posts. Sophie stayed away, spending time at the library or with friends, locking her bedroom door when she was home. I kept my routine: work, home, dinner, quiet nights in my study. I treated Ellen like a guest who'd overstayed her welcome, polite but distant. The last piece fell on a chilly Tuesday evening in late March. Sophie and I were flipping through college brochures when we heard a car pull into the driveway. Ellen had been out all day claiming she was job hunting, but I figured she was at a bar. The front door flew open and she stumbled in, clearly drunk. Ellen stumbled into the living room, trailed by some guy I didn't know, tall, lanky, reeking of cigarettes and cheap aftershave. Mike, Ellen slurred, her voice thick with liquor. Meet my friend, Chad. She gestured at him. Chad, this is my husband, Mike. Sophie's eyes went wide with fear, locking onto mine. I stood slowly, my body tight with restrained anger. Ellen, get this guy out of my house, I said, keeping my voice low. Your house? She scoffed, swaying. It's still mine too until the divorce goes through. I can bring whoever I want. Chad stepped forward, unsteady on his feet. You got an issue with me being here, man? I sized him up. He was younger than Ellen, maybe mid-30s, with the rough look of someone who spent more time in dive bars than a steady job. He was trying to play tough, but his eyes flickered with doubt. I don't care about you, I said evenly. I care that you're in my house. Maybe you should back off, old man, he shot back. Sophie jumped up from the couch. Mom, please, just make him leave. Ellen ignored her, looping her arm around Chad's waist. Chad's staying for dinner, aren't you, hun? I glanced at Sophie, her face a mix of embarrassment and fear as her mom made a fool of herself. Sophie, go to your room, I said softly. Dad? Now, kiddo. She bolted upstairs, but I knew she'd be listening from the landing. I turned back to Ellen and Chad. You've got two options, I said, my voice calm but hard as iron. Leave on your own, or I call the cops for trespassing. Chad laughed, nervous. Trespassing? Your wife invited me. My wife doesn't call the shots here. This house is in a trust, and I'm the only trustee. You're trespassing. Ellen's face flushed red. You can't do this, Mike. I still live here. Not for long, I said, pulling out my phone and dialing. This is 911. I need to report a trespasser. Chad's tough guy act crumbled. Whoa, hold up. I don't want trouble. Then get out, I said, phone still to my ear. He glanced at Ellen, who was glaring at me with pure venom. Babe, I should go, he muttered. This ain't worth it. Don't you leave me? Ellen grabbed his arm, desperate. Stand up to him. But Chad was already halfway to the door. I'll call you later, okay? His boots thudded on the porch as he bailed. Ellen stood alone in the living room, swaying, looking broken. You humiliated me, she said, her voice cracking with tears and booze. You did that to yourself, I said. In front of your daughter. Her eyes flicked to the stairs, where Sophie was probably listening. For a second, shame flashed across her face. I'm her mother, she whispered. Then start acting like it. That night, I heard Ellen retching in the bathroom. I didn't get up. By morning, she was gone. She'd packed a bag and left a note saying she was crashing with a friend, and would come back for her stuff later. Sophie found it first and handed it to me, tears streaming silently down her face, the kind that come when you realize childhood's over. "She's really gone," she said. I pulled her close. "Yeah, she is." "You okay, Dad?" I thought about it. Was I okay? My marriage was dead, my family fractured, my life flipped upside down by lies and betrayal. But I also felt a weight lift. No more tiptoeing around, no more faking it. "I'll be okay," I said. "We'll be okay." The divorce took 6 months. Ellen got a lawyer, funded by a loan from her sister, but she didn't have a leg to stand on. The prenup we'd signed years ago, plus the trust I'd set up, left her with no leverage. She got half our joint savings, about $3,000, and her personal stuff. Everything else stayed with me, including primary custody of Sophie. Ellen tried arguing she was tricked into signing the trust papers, but the documents were ironclad. She'd signed in front of a notary, with proof she was told to get her own lawyer. The final hearing was on a cold November day in the Fremont courthouse. I sat with my lawyer, watching Ellen sign the papers, her hands trembling. She looked older than 44, worn down by months of chaos. When it was done, her lawyer grabbed the documents and left. Ellen lingered in the hallway, like she wanted to say something. "I hope you're satisfied," she said finally. I looked at the woman I'd loved for 22 years. "I'm not happy, Ellen, but I'm at peace. I loved you, you know. I really loved you." "Maybe you did," she said, tears falling, "but it wasn't enough." She nodded slowly. "Take care of Sophie." "Always." She walked away, her footsteps echoing on the courthouse floor. I watched her go, feeling nothing but a quiet void where my anger used to be. That night, Sophie and I went to our favorite spot, a little Mexican joint in Fremont we'd been hitting since she was a kid. It was our tradition for big moments, and closing out the divorce felt big enough. "What's next?" Sophie asked, scooping salsa onto a chip. "We figure out what's ahead," I said. "You've got college apps to wrap up. I'm deciding whether to keep working the rigs or find something closer to home." "I'd like you around more," she said. I smiled. "Then that's the plan." We ate in easy silence, watching other families around us, regular folks with regular problems. "Dad," Sophie said suddenly, "I'm proud of you. You could have been cruel, but you weren't." I squeezed her hand across the table. "I wasn't exactly kind. I tore your mom's world apart." "She did that herself," Sophie said. "You just held up a mirror." I chuckled despite myself. "You're too sharp, kid. Learn it from you." Driving home, I thought about what came next. Sophie would head to college in 8 months. I'd be alone in the house I'd fought to keep. Maybe I'd sell it, get something smaller. Maybe I'd take a trip somewhere, Italy maybe, instead of that France vacation we'd planned years ago. Dating again? Hard to picture, but not impossible. For now, I was good. I'd protected Sophie and myself. I'd learned I could handle more than I ever thought. Betrayal, heartbreak, all of it. The house was quiet when we got back. Sophie headed upstairs to study, and I sat in my study staring at the folder of evidence I'd built up. The divorce was done. I could delete it all now. The fight was over, but something kept me from deleting those evidence files. My phone buzzed, pulling me out of my thoughts. Jake's number lit up the screen. "Hey," I answered. "It's done," Jake said, his voice flat, like he'd been drained dry. "Rachel signed the divorce papers today. It's official." I closed the folder on my computer. "You holding up okay?" "Feels like I got run over, but I saw it coming a mile off." He paused. "Want to grab a drink? I need company that doesn't charge by the hour." "Sure," I said. "Not Rusty's, though. I'm done with that place. Let's try somewhere new." We met at a diner across Fremont, a spot neither of us had ever been to. Jake looked beat, worn out, but with a strange lightness, like he'd finally dropped a weight he'd carried too long. "What's next for you?" I asked after we ordered. "Thinking about selling the house," he said, sipping his beer. "Too many ghosts. Maybe I'll move closer to my cousin in Austin, start over." "Could be good for you," I said. "What about you, staying put?" I thought about it. For now, Sophie's got her senior year to finish. After that, who knows? We talked logistics, lawyers, splitting assets, custody details, but beneath it all was a shared understanding. We'd both survived something that nearly broke us, learned things about ourselves we never wanted to know. "You ever wonder if we could have stopped it?" Jake asked out of nowhere. "If we'd been around more, paid better attention, been different somehow?" I'd wrestled with that question 1,000 times. "No," I said finally. "We were solid husbands. Worked our asses off, provided for our families, loved our wives. What they did was on them." "Rachel tried to pin it on me," Jake said. "Said I was distant, cared more about the rig than her." Ellen pulled the same card. But even if we were the worst husbands alive, that didn't give them a free pass to cheat. They could have asked for counseling, a separation, anything but sneaking around and making fools of us. Jake nodded slowly. Yeah, you're right. Still hurts, though. 20 years, and I never saw it coming. Maybe that says we're just the type to trust until we can't. We finished our beers in easy silence, two guys who'd walked through fire and came out scarred but standing. A month later, I was tinkering with my fishing boat in the garage when Sophie came out. Dad, someone's here for you. I looked up from the engine to see Bryce Coleman standing in my driveway. He looked rough, unshaven, gaunt, in clothes that had seen better days, shifting nervously. What do you want? I asked, not bothering to wipe the grease off my hands. I need to talk about Ellen, Bryce said, avoiding my eyes. I set down my wrench and studied the guy who'd helped torch my marriage. He was younger, maybe 38, with the kind of polished charm that probably worked on women, until you looked closer and saw the cracks. What about her? She's been calling me nonstop. She's falling apart. I almost laughed. And you think I'm going to fix that? She needs help. Real help. She's drinking too much, not eating right. He hesitated, voice dropping. She's talking about doing something drastic. A cold knot formed in my gut. Despite everything Ellen had done, I didn't want her hurting herself. Not for Sophie's sake, if nothing else. Where's she staying? Some rundown apartment complex on the east side of Fremont. Can't afford better. Bryce looked genuinely shaken. I tried helping, but she's obsessed with you, with getting even. She blames you for everything. Of course she does. I searched his face for a lie, but saw only guilt and worry. Why tell me this? What do you expect me to do? I don't know. Maybe call her sister or her mom. Get her into therapy or a program. He ran a hand through his hair. I can't help her. I'm part of the mess. I had to give him that. He knew his role in this disaster. You're damn right, you're part of it, I said. I know, and I'm sorry, he said. I never meant for it to go this far. What did you think would happen? We'd all just grab a beer together? That I'd be cool with you and my wife? He flinched. Ellen told me you two were done, just staying together for Sophie. Another lie, no shock there. My marriage was solid until you showed up, I said. Not perfect, but we were a family. I'm sorry, he said again, looking like he meant it. I stared at the guy who'd helped wreck my life and felt only pity. He'd thrown away his career, his reputation for a fling with a married woman, and now he was stuck with the fallout. Don't come back here, I said, but I'll call Ellen's sister for Sophie. Bryce nodded, relieved, and shuffled to his beat-up sedan. He paused before driving off. For what it's worth, Ellen loved you. Keep talking about how smart you were, how hard you worked. I think that's why she's taking this so hard. Funny way of showing love, I said. He had no reply, just drove off, leaving me with my thoughts and the boat engine. That night, I called Ellen's sister, Karen. The call was short and awkward. Karen confirmed Ellen was struggling and agreed to get their mom for an intervention. I gave her the apartment address Bryce had shared and hung up, feeling I'd done what I could. 2 weeks later, Karen called back. Ellen was in a rehab facility in Lincoln, getting help for depression and drinking. She wanted me to tell you something, Karen said. She's sorry for everything. I thanked her and hung up, feeling a mix of relief and a quiet sadness. I didn't hate Ellen anymore. I just felt sorry for her, a woman who'd thrown away everything and was left picking up the pieces. But for the first time in months, I felt a flicker of forgiveness, not for her sake, but for mine. Letting go of the anger was like setting down my own heavy load. Spring faded into summer and life settled into a new groove. I traded the high-paying rig job for a spot with a construction crew in Fremont, choosing to be home every night over the bigger paycheck. Sophie thrived with the steady routine, her grades climbed, and her college options grew brighter. We got occasional updates on Ellen through her sister Karen. She'd finished rehab and was living in a halfway house in Lincoln, working as a cashier at a local supermarket. She was staying sober, going to therapy, piecing her life back together one step at a time. Sophie asked about seeing her mom, and I didn't stand in her way. Their visits were stiff but polite, always in public places with a supervisor, where Ellen could tell her worries and Sophie could start to let go of the hurt. She looks different, Sophie told me after one visit. Older, sadder, but maybe a bit wiser too. I hoped that was true. For Sophie's sake, I wanted Ellen to find some kind of peace, even if it wasn't with me. That bridge was ash, but I hoped she'd find someone who could value what she had left. As Sophie's senior year kicked off, I started thinking about my own path. At 46, I was financially set and single, for the first time in over 20 years. It was both daunting and kind of thrilling. I took it slow, joined a gym, signed up for a barbecue cooking class, said yes to invites I'd have dodged before. Bit by bit, I started building a life as just me, not half of a couple. The first woman I asked out was a history teacher at Sophie's school, a divorced mom with 2 kids who got what it meant to start over. We didn't click romantically, but we became buddies, and she helped me see I could trust again, even if just a little at a time. Meanwhile, Jake had moved to Austin and was doing all right. He'd landed a job with a tech firm and was seeing a woman he met at a community picnic. During our weekly calls, he sounded lighter than he had in years. "The thing about starting over," he said one night, "is you get to choose who you want to be. You're not stuck as the guy you were." I got what he meant. The man I'd been during my marriage, the provider, the peacekeeper, the one who ignored red flags, was gone. In his place was someone tougher, more honest with himself, less naive, but more aware of what he could handle. October brought college acceptance letters and scholarship offers for Sophie. She had her pick of schools and settled on an engineering program at a university 3 hours away in Omaha. Close enough for visits, far enough to spread her wings. "You sure you'll be okay alone?" she asked as we walked the campus during a tour. "I'll manage," I said, meaning it. "Besides, you'll be back for breaks and summers, at least for a bit." We were crossing the quad when her phone pinged with a text. Her face tightened as she read it. "It's Mom," she said. "She wants to meet for coffee before I head to college." My shoulders tensed. Even after all this time, Ellen's name still hit me. "What do you want to do?" I asked. "I want to see her, but I want you there too." My gut said no. I hadn't faced Ellen since the divorce hearing nearly a year ago, but Sophie was asking and she didn't ask for much. "All right," I said. "If that's what you need." We met at a quiet coffee shop in downtown Fremont, a place none of us had been before. Ellen was already there, looking nervous and thinner than I remembered. Her hair was cropped short, her face bare of makeup, her clothes plain. She wasn't the same woman who'd dragged that guy into our house. "Thanks for coming," she said as Sophie and I sat across from her. "Both of you. I wasn't sure you would." Sophie reached out and squeezed her mom's hand. "How are you holding up, Mom?" "Better," Ellen said, her voice soft but steady. "Taking it day by day. I've got a job, I'm going to meetings, talking to a therapist. It's tough, but it's progress." I stayed quiet, letting Sophie steer the conversation. I studied Ellen, searching for traces of the woman I'd married, the one I'd loved. She was still there, buried under the scars and years, but different in ways that ran deep. "I need to say sorry," Ellen said, looking straight at me for the first time. "Not just for the affair, but for everything. The lies, the manipulation, how I treated you and Sophie. I was selfish and cruel, and I'm sorry." I nodded but kept silent. Words were easy. Ellen had shown actions, spoke louder. "I know you probably can't forgive me," she went on. "I wouldn't if I were you. But I want you to know I own what I did. It wasn't your fault, Mike. You were a good husband, and I threw it away." "Why?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. "Why'd you do it?" She stared at her coffee for a long moment, eyes glistening. "I was lonely," she said simply. "Scared, stupid. You were gone so much for work, and Sophie was growing up, needing me less. I felt like I was vanishing. I wanted to snap that I'd worked the rigs for her and Sophie, that everything I did was for them. But I'd said it all during the divorce, and it hadn't changed a thing. I thought if someone else saw me, wanted me, I wasn't fading away," she said, her voice breaking. "I was wrong about it all. Bryce didn't care about me. He was just using me, and I destroyed the only real love I had." Sophie was crying now, wiping her eyes with a napkin. My own eyes stung, but I held it together. "I can't undo it," Ellen said, "but I'm trying every day to be better, for myself and for Sophie." We talked for another hour, sidestepping the rawest wounds. Ellen asked about Sophie's college plans and my new job. She didn't touch my personal life, and I was thankful for that. As we left, I felt a quiet shift. Not forgiveness, not yet, but an acceptance that let me breathe a little easier. When it was time to go, Ellen hugged Sophie tightly, whispering something that made her nod and smile through her tears. She turned to me and held out her hand. I hesitated for a second, then shook it. "Take care, Ellen," I said. "You too, both of you." Sophie and I drove home in silence, each lost in our own heads. Finally, she spoke up. "What did she whisper?" I asked. "She said she hopes you find someone who's worthy of you." Sophie glanced at me. I hope so, too. I smiled. Maybe one day. For now, I'm good with just us. The months flew by after that. Sophie graduated high school with honors, gearing up for college. I kept working construction, slowly branching out socially. I went on a few dates, nothing serious, but each one reminded me what it felt like to open up again. Ellen stuck to her promise of turning things around. She showed up at Sophie's graduation, sitting quietly in the back, clapping when Sophie's name was called. Afterward, she gave her a quick hug and left without crashing our family celebration. The night before Sophie headed to college, we sat on the back deck, staring at the Nebraska stars, talking about what lay ahead. "Are you nervous?" I asked. "A bit," she said, leaning against my shoulder. "Mostly excited, though. Are you nervous about an empty house?" "A little," I admitted, "but excited too. You should travel, Dad. See the world. You've never gone anywhere except for work." I'd been thinking the same. With steady work and frugal habits, I had enough saved to take a break. Maybe head to Italy or Japan, places I'd only seen in pictures. "Maybe I will," I said, "once you're settled at school." We sat in easy silence, listening to the crickets in our Dodge County neighborhood. Tomorrow, Sophie will start her adult life, and I'd kick off the next chapter of mine. "Dad," she said suddenly, "thanks for everything, for fighting for me, for keeping things together, for handling it all with class." My throat tightened. "You don't need to thank me, kiddo. It's what dads do." "Not every dad. I got lucky." The next morning, I helped Sophie load her stuff into my truck for the drive to Omaha. As we pulled out, I glanced back at the house I'd fought so hard to keep. It looked smaller, less significant than it had during the divorce. Maybe it was time to sell, to let go of the past and build something new. 2 months into Sophie's college term, I ran into Bryce Coleman at a grocery store in Fremont. He looked better than the last time, clean-shaven in work boots and a flannel that suggested he'd found a job. "Mike," he said, clearly uneasy. "How are you doing?" "Fine," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "You?" "Good. Got a gig with a landscaping crew? Nothing big, but it's honest." He paused. "Heard Ellen's getting help. Glad for her." I nodded, not interested in digging up old wounds. "Look, I know you don't want to hear this," he said, "but I'm sorry for what I did. I've been seeing a counselor, trying to figure out why I make such dumb choices." "Good for you," I said, and I meant it. Everyone deserved a shot at being better, even Bryce. "Hope it works out." "You seem like a decent guy who got a raw deal," he said. I almost smiled. "We all get dealt bad hands sometimes. It's what you do with them that counts." He nodded and walked off, leaving me with my cart and my thoughts. The run-in didn't rattle me like it might have a year ago. I felt nothing for Bryce now, just indifference, and that felt like a win. That night, I called Sophie to tell her about seeing Bryce. She listened quietly, then shifted to talking about her engineering courses and new friends. "You sound happy," I said. "I am," she said. "College is everything I wanted." "Are you happy, Dad?" I thought about it. My marriage was gone, my family reshaped, my life turned inside out. But I was free from lies, had Sophie's love and respect, and a future wide open with possibilities. "Yeah," I said, surprised to realize it was true. "I think I am." Christmas brought Sophie home for winter break, full of stories about classes and a new boyfriend, Dylan, an architecture major. Her face lit up when she talked about him, the same way it used to when she'd ramble about her favorite books as a kid. Ellen called Christmas morning to wish Sophie well, but didn't ask to meet. That was probably best. Some scars needed space to heal. On New Year's Eve, I almost skipped a party at a coworker's house. Parties still brought back flashes of that security footage, but Sophie pushed me to go, and I'm glad I did. I met a woman named Diane, a physical therapist who'd moved to Fremont 6 months earlier to care for her aging dad. She was warm, with a quick laugh and a straightforward way that felt refreshing. We talked for hours about work, family, and the strange challenge of rebuilding life in your 40s. Diane had been divorced for 4 years and had a teenage son, so she got my situation without any judgment. "Want to grab dinner sometime?" I asked as the party wound down. "I'd like that," she said, scribbling her number on a napkin. "But fair warning, I'm done with drama. I want something simple." "Same here," I said, and I meant it. Our first date was at a cozy diner where we could talk without yelling over music. Our second was a walk along a nature trail, where we found we both loved the quiet of the outdoors. By our 5th date, I realized I was looking forward to seeing Diane more than I'd looked forward to anything in years. She was nothing like Ellen, steady where Ellen was impulsive, genuine where Ellen chased appearances. "I like her," Sophie said when she met Diane over spring break. "She's real, and she doesn't try to act like my mom." That was what I valued most about Diane. She didn't try to fill anyone else's shoes, just walked her own path. When it was time to leave the coffee shop, Ellen wrapped Sophie in a tight hug, whispering something that made her smile through her tears. She turned to me and offered a handshake. I paused, then took her hand. "Stay well, Ellen," I said. "You too, both of you." Sophie and I drove back to our Dodge County home in silence, each caught in our own thoughts. "What did she say?" I asked finally. "She hopes you find someone who's right for you," Sophie said, glancing over. "I hope so too," I grinned. "Maybe someday. For now, I'm happy with just us." Time moved fast after that. Sophie graduated high school with top marks, ready for college. I kept up my construction work, easing into a wider social circle. I tried a few dates, nothing heavy, but each one reminded me how to connect again. Ellen stayed true to her word about getting better. She came to Sophie's graduation, sitting in the back, clapping when Sophie's name was called. After, she gave her a quick hug and slipped away, letting us have our family moment. The night before Sophie left for college, we sat on the back deck, watching the Nebraska stars and talking about what was next. "Are you nervous?" I asked. "Kinda," she said, resting her head on my shoulder. "Mostly excited, though. Are you nervous about an empty house?" "A bit," I admitted, "but kinda excited, too. You should see the world, Dad. You've never gone anywhere but the rigs." I'd been thinking the same. Maybe a trip to Italy or India, places I'd only read about. "Might just do that," I said, "once you're settled." We sat quietly, the sounds of our neighborhood humming around us. Tomorrow, Sophie will step into her adult life, and I'll start my next chapter. "Dad," she said suddenly, "thanks for everything. For fighting for me, for keeping it together, for doing it with dignity." My throat caught. "No need to thank me, kiddo. It's what dads do." "Not all dads. I got lucky." The next morning, I helped Sophie pack my truck for the drive to Omaha. As we pulled out, I looked back at the house I'd fought so hard to keep. It seemed smaller, less important now. Maybe it was time to sell, to let go of the past and build something fresh. 2 months into Sophie's college term, I bumped into Bryce Coleman at a Fremont grocery store. He looked healthier, clean-shaven in work clothes, like he'd found steady work. "Mike," he said, shifting uncomfortably, "how are you holding up?" "Good," I said, keeping it neutral. "You?" "All right, got a job with a roofing crew. Nothing fancy, but it pays." He hesitated. "Heard Ellen's doing better. Glad for her." I nodded, not eager to revisit old wounds. "Look, I know it's not my place," he said, "but I'm sorry for what I did. Been working with a therapist to figure out why I made such stupid calls." "Good on you," I said, meaning it. Everyone deserved a chance to grow, even Bryce. "Hope it sticks." "You seem like a solid guy who got screwed over," he said. I almost laughed. Life deals bad hands sometimes. It's what you make of them that matters. He nodded and walked off, leaving me with my groceries. The encounter didn't shake me like it might have before. I felt nothing but indifference toward Bryce now, a sign I was moving on. That night, I called Sophie to tell her about running into Bryce. She listened, then shifted to her engineering classes and new friends. "You sound happy," I said. "I am," she replied. "College is everything I hoped." "Are you happy, Dad?" I thought about it. My marriage was gone, my family reshaped, my life flipped upside down. But I was free from deceit, had Sophie's respect, and a future full of potential. "Yeah," I said, surprised it was true. "I'm getting there." Christmas brought Sophie home for break, buzzing with stories about classes and a new boyfriend, Dylan, studying architecture. Her eyes sparkled when she mentioned him, like when she was a kid gushing about her favorite stories. Ellen called Christmas morning to wish Sophie well, but didn't push for a visit, probably for the best, as some wounds need time to heal. On New Year's Eve, I nearly skipped a coworker's party, still wary of crowds after that security footage. Sophie nudged me to go, and I'm glad I did. I met Diane, a physical therapist who'd moved to Fremont 6 months earlier to care for her aging dad. She was sharp, kind, with a laugh that put me at ease. We talked for hours about work, family, and the odd challenge of starting over in your 40s. Diane had been divorced 4 years, with a teenage son, so she got my situation without judgment. "Want to grab dinner sometime?" I asked as the party wound down. "I'd like that," she said, handing me her number. "But heads up, I'm done with complications. I want something simple." "Same here," I said, and I meant it. Our first date was at a quiet diner where we could hear each other talk. Our second was a hike on a local trail, bonding over a love for the outdoors. By our 5th date, I realized Diane was someone I looked forward to seeing more than anything in years. She was steady where Ellen had been impulsive, real where Ellen chased appearances. I like her, Sophie said when she met Diane during spring break. She's herself, not trying to be mom. That was Diane's strength. She didn't try to rewrite my past, just offered something new. By summer, Diane and I were talking about moving in together. My house held too many ghosts, and her apartment was too small. We found a place across Fremont, a cozy house with a garden Diane loved and a shed where I could work on engines. Jake visited in July, bringing his girlfriend Nora to meet me and Sophie. The four of us sat on the deck of our new place, sipping beers as the sun dipped low. "You look good, man," Jake said. "Settled, happy." "I feel it," I said, and it was true. The rage and bitterness from the divorce had faded, replaced by a quiet peace. "What happened with Ellen?" Nora asked, then added, "Sorry, didn't mean to nose in." Jake filled me in a bit. "She's doing all right from what I hear," I said. "Working, sober, rebuilding her life." Sophie nodded. She'd seen her mom a few times over the year. Short, careful meetings that seemed to help them both. Ellen was seeing someone new, a guy from her therapy group who supported her recovery. "It's weird," Sophie said. "I used to think divorce was the worst thing, like it ruined families. But for us, it saved what we had left. We're better apart than we were together." I couldn't disagree. The old family was built on lies and tension. What we had now, honest connections chosen freely, was stronger, even if it looked different. As fall neared and Sophie got ready for her junior year, I thought back on the 3 years since I'd watched that security footage. That guy, angry, wounded, plotting revenge, felt like a stranger now. I'd gotten my revenge, sure. Ellen lost her job, her home, her reputation, forced to face her mistakes and start from nothing. I'd come out on top in every way that could be measured. But somewhere along the way, I realized revenge was empty. What mattered was the life I'd built from the ruins, a life with Sophie, Diane, and a clearer sense of who I was. The day Sophie left for her junior year, Diane and I drove her to campus. She hugged us both, promising to call and come home for Thanksgiving. On the drive back, Diane took my hand. "What's on your mind?" she asked. "Just thinking how different things are," I said. 3 years ago, I thought I was done. Turns out I was just getting started. She squeezed my hand. "The best part of starting over is picking what to carry forward and what to leave behind." I looked at Diane, smart, kind, real, in a way Ellen never was, and felt thankful for the path that led me here. The betrayal had been brutal, but it pushed me to demand better for myself. That night, we sat in our garden, watching Diane's herbs sway in the late summer breeze. Sophie called, full of excitement about her classes, and Dylan, who was studying abroad in Japan. After we hung up, Diane and I sat quietly, each reading, occasionally sharing a line we liked. It was the kind of simple, close moment I used to think was dull when I was younger. Now I knew it was everything. "Mike," Diane said, looking up from her book. "Yeah? I love you." It was the first time either of us had said it. I set my book down and looked at the woman who'd shown me I could trust again, could love again, could build something new without chasing the past. "I love you too," I said, meaning every word. We kissed in the soft twilight, two people who'd found each other after learning that some endings are just beginnings in disguise. Years later, I'd look back on that night. I saw the security footage as the start of my real life. Not because of the revenge I'd planned or the justice I'd served, but because it forced me to stop settling for less than I deserved. Ellen taught me about betrayal. Diane taught me about healing. Sophie taught me about unbreakable love. And I taught myself it's never too late to start fresh, to choose better, to become the man I was meant to be. I sold the old house to a young couple with 2 kids. Sometimes I'd drive by and feel only a faint curiosity about who lived there now. The past was just that. Past, tucked away in memory, no longer sharp enough to hurt. On a warm October evening, 5 years after the divorce, Diane and I sat on our porch, watching kids play in Fremont Street. Sophie, now in grad school and engaged to Dylan, texted, "Can't wait for Thanksgiving." Dylan's pumped to meet Diane properly. "Love you, Dad." I showed Diane the message as she worked on a quilt for Sophie's birthday. "She's a great kid," Diane said. "You did good raising her." "We raised each other," I said. As the sun sank over our quiet street, I thought about the wild road that brought me here. The betrayal that nearly broke me had set me free to find real joy. The revenge I'd planned so carefully mattered less than the life I'd built after. The best victories aren't about crushing your enemies. They're about outliving your pain and finding happiness again. I took Diane's hand as the stars came out. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new chances to choose hope over bitterness. But tonight, with the woman I loved and the life we'd made, I was right where I belonged.